What's your favorite game? The game that you always find yourself coming back to when times are tough. The game that tickles your dopamine meter. Now, once you have this game in mind, I want you to think of one word: why. Why is this game so special? Why does this game, out of all others, the tens of hundreds of thousands of media that you've consumed, beat them all, sending them all back to Detroit? Think about the reason, the idea or themes that this media tackles in a way that you've never seen before. The way that this game handles its problems and ideas in a far better and more creative way than any other game. And that game for me is Majora's Mask. The darkness of its story, the pain of its characters, the sorrow that washes over Termina. In the following sections, I'll tell you a detailed summary about the Xbox 360, a game console that was released in 2000. I will reveal to you all why Majora's Mask is not just my favorite Zelda game, but my favorite game of all time. So now that you know my favorite game, I want to take you through why I love this great game. Majora's Mask gameplay is extremely good, at least in my opinion. As tradition, the dungeons and overworld are amazing to traverse and explore, with the first area being Clock Town, a wide, bustling town with dozens of people to meet and freaks to ignore until later. The game thrusts you in here with one goal: stop an imp, Skull Kid, who has stolen a mask from the Happy Mask salesman and has turned you into a Deku Scrub, making you pretty much useless, just like your puny real-life self. Before you start your journey, however, the Happy Mask salesman informs you that you must complete this task within 3 days, as he scheduled a time in a local nightclub to go drinking with his buddies. After 3 days of most likely heavy frustration, agony, and figuring things out, you may have an inclination to look up at the sky, or make it to a certain checkpoint that forces you to, and you'll instantly realize the looming threat, and the reason for your 3-day time constraint. In 3 days, the giant-sized moon with a haunting face will crash straight into Clock Town, killing all of the residents, hopefully Detroit as well. Once you finally complete the first 3 days and have followed the main story closely, you'll finally confront the Skull Kid and get your precious ocarina back that he stole from you at the beginning of the game. And in that moment, you remember a meeting with Princess Zelda, also remembering the Song of Time. Once you play the Song of Time on your new Deku Pipes, you are reverted back to the first day, allowing you to return to your fleshy, non-wooden self. Having reset time, this introduces the main gimmick of the game, 3-day time loop. With the Song of Time, you can go back to the very first day, but with some variations of the song, you can go forward in time and even slow it. With these 3 songs, it makes time management and quest management significantly easier. If you can effectively plan out days, that is, time to bring out the pen and paper. You're tasked with going to 4 dungeons and bringing peace to the areas that they reside in, and man are these dungeons good. The dungeons in this game surpass all other Zelda games in my opinion. The very first dungeon takes place in Woodfall, a poisoned rainforest that other Deku folk reside in. This dungeon perfectly introduces the player to how these dungeons will be set up and how to tackle them. And as the dungeons get harder and harder, the player will have to adapt to them and understand them on a deeper level. Although the gameplay in dungeons are similar to that of the game's predecessor, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask amplifies the gameplay in a substantial way. The map. Hence the title. Obviously, this game has masks, and plenty of them, but there are 3 main ones that you'll be using on your journey. The first is a Deku Mask, letting you transform into a Deku Scrub, giving you the ability to burrow and fly out of flowers, skip on water, and shoot bubbles from your weird birdo mouth. The next mask is the Goron Mask, allowing you to transform into a Goron, giving you the ability to ground pound with amazing force, roll across the land at blazing speeds, and move once thought immovable block. The last mandatory mask is the Zora Mask, letting you transform into a Zora, giving you the ability to swim like a dolphin, throw your fins like boomerangs, and use an energy field underwater to stun or defeat most enemies. The last transformation mask is the Fierce Deity Mask, giving you godlike strength, capable of killing every boss in the game easily. So easily, in fact, that the mask can only be worn in boss fights. With these 4 masks, the game is heavily altered, giving Link new abilities with each one, and each mask having their own strengths and weaknesses. Speaking of the masks, every time the player uses one, the animation for putting it on is haunting for a Nintendo game, showing Link bend over with the sounds of bones cracking and darkness shrouding him, before breaking out in a horrible shriek of pain. The game giving you these masks definitely improves the game substantially, adding some flair to old gameplay. There are also other masks in the game, with these not transforming you into a different creature, but altering the game world in some ways. You don't obtain these masks through the main quest, you get these masks through the game's abundance of side quests. All of these masks affect a side quest in some way, either starting one or ending one. Every mask has a purpose, even though the game doesn't tell you what the purpose is up front. That's the beauty of the system. The fact that the game forces you to search and talk to people to get masks or use masks encourages the player to take a break from the main story every once in a while and take in this game's wonderful array of side objectives and quests, which in my and many other opinions are one of the biggest factors of Majora's Mask as a whole. Speaking of In my opinion, what truly makes this game are its side quests, having the most side quests in any Zelda game besides Breath of the Wild, with over 50 of them. Obviously, for you youngsters at home, 50 is a big boy number for the N64. In fact, it was too much of a big boy number, because Majora's Mask is one of the only 2 games on the N64 that requires the expansion pack, with Donkey Kong 64 being the other. This abundance of side quests to complete in the game enhances Majora's Mask on a different plane that's absent in most other Zeldas. Majora's Mask side quests almost always deal with sad or negative emotion, almost having an extremely dark tone to it. Another reason I love this game. Majora's Mask is dark. Incredibly so for a Nintendo game. Everywhere you go is filled with a dark tone, the feeling of death and despair clouding you at all times. Even the artwork for this game is insanely dark. Look at Ocarina of Time's happy, Disney-like art style. Colors are vibrant, with many different shades of color used for the shadows and the bright highlights. When you look at Majora's Mask artwork, on the other hand, you'll notice something very different right away. Instead of those cutesy colors and the huge variety, now we get mainly colors that pop, with a harsh black used for the main shadow. I actually prefer Majora's Mask's darker, more in-your-face art style, as it unknowingly lets the player know what they're in for without even realizing it. The darkness of this game goes hand in hand with the side quests, as all of them have Link helping the various citizens of Termina throughout them. With the amount of side quests and the time limit of the game being a maximum of 144 minutes, a question will likely envelop players at some point. Can I save everyone? I've asked myself this question too, and I've learned over the years that the answer is no. Like I said, Majora's Mask is a dark game, and the looming fact that you can't save everyone in this game is heartbreaking. The game makes you feel like these NPCs are people, and the fact that you can't save everyone really brings the darkness together. The darkness also accentuates itself with its atmosphere. The way that Majora's Mask presents itself with its atmosphere is absolutely amazing. From the amazing music by Koji Kondo to the incredible characters, this game's atmosphere is excellent. Throughout the game, many different filters and effects envelop the screen, with most of them showing darkness or something of that nature. The characters of Majora's Mask also mean a great deal to the atmosphere, mainly in their dialogue. Most of the folks that you can find around Termina are either half-heartedly confident that the moon won't fall, with the swordsman of Clock Town going as far as to say if the moon were to fall, he would slice it in half, while the other inhabitants are either terrified that they're going to die or painfully accepting that they will, with the same exact swordsman cowering in the corner of his dojo, crying out that he doesn't want to die and that he can't take the pain. Other characters such as Dermani, the Goron leader, cry out to Link, begging him to bring him back to life because he can't rest until his people are free. Or Mikau, the guitar player of the Indigogos, floating lifeless on the beach before dying in front of Link's very eyes. After you play the Song of Healing on your ocarina to both of these characters, the saddest cutscenes I've ever seen in any video game will play, symbolizing that their spirits can now rest, knowing that Link can carry on their legacies for them, as they have accepted their deaths, turning their souls into masks. The way that all the characters behave and speak in the story adds an extreme amount of atmosphere to the game that I love personally. One of the last things about atmosphere takes place in the game's actual atmosphere, aside from the giant moon threatening to kill everyone, that is, because in the final in-game hours, this game is at its darkest and saddest I've ever seen in a Nintendo game. A horribly red sky stains the air, with dark scattered clouds everywhere, and as these things fall upon the land, you'll begin to hear the most chilling and saddest pieces of music ever, making even the most hardened criminals cry like a toddler. This immensely sad music, followed by the chimes of the clock tower, is unmatched and will forever be my most memorable moment in gaming history, period. So here we are, towards the end of the video, and here's why The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is my favorite game of all time. This game's gameplay is immaculate on a level that so many other games lack. It's incredibly fun and diverse, with the masks extremely changing the game in some shape or form. Its side quests are undoubtedly the best in the entire franchise, with great ones like the Romani Ranch quest and the Andrew/Cafe quest. Side quests make up most of what makes this game great, with memorable stories and characters. Finally, the way Majora's Mask presents its atmosphere to the player is like no other, having an extremely sophisticated and darker atmosphere than any other Nintendo game in the world. All of these reasons together make Majora's Mask my favorite game of all time, and it will always have a soft spot in the hearts of many, especially mine. Thank you to Nintendo and Eiji Aonuma, as well as Yoshiaki Koizumi for creating my favorite piece of media out there and giving me the experience that is Majora's Mask.